Apple co-founder, CEO, dead at the age of 56, and Sony could have a movie on the way about him. The iPhone 4S pre-orders have gone live. Android ice cream sandwich screenshots have been leaked. The Galaxy Nexus event has been postponed. And Bravo struck a deal to make a reality-based show in Silicon Valley. All this week on Tech Weekly.
Tech Weekly, episode 60. It's Saturday, October 8th, 2011. What's up?
Nothing much. I had to drink. I don't know why I thought this would help, but I drank some coffee this morning. I usually don't drink any coffee because I yelled a ton at the game last night. So if my voice is like raspy and sounds like it's like gonna go out, it probably will by the end of the show. So anyway, it's another Saturday, and both of us had. Well, you have. Didn't you say you have Monday off too, or like half?
I do.
So Jet has a weird schedule this week. You were off on Friday. Explain this. It's kinda weird.
I got off work on Thursday at 9 in the morning. And then I'm off Friday. And then, of course, Saturday. Then I have to go back to work Sunday. And then just for a little bit. And then I'm off Monday. And then I go back Tuesday.
Kind of a weird schedule. You're off like a Monday when you're normally not off, but then you have to work on a Sunday.
I'm like, why can't we flip those and just make it normal?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, well. And then I was off on Friday, so... yesterday, sorry, whatever. I'm confused.
World Change Day.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and head into our first story. And this is one of those stories, we come across these every so often where, we don't really... You never want to talk about this because it means that, someone is no longer with us. But at the same time, I think more than ever, this has enabled us to reflect on the life of a man that, really changed the world for the better. No matter if you like what he did or you didn't, you can't argue that his products didn't change the world. And, of course, we're talking about Steve Jobs. He died at the age of 56. I think it was that on Tuesday or... I'm not quite sure. Something like that. It was earlier this week. And, of course, he's a co-founder, CEO. He also... he's a co-founder and once CEO of Apple. He had stepped down to, chairman of the board or something back in... I think it was August or whenever.
Yeah, he had stepped down a couple times.
Right.
But then he came back.
Right, came back, yeah. When they had that, when they started releasing, the multicolored iMacs and everything.
He's like, no, no.
And, the interesting thing was, a lot of people don't realize this, but he was one of the major influencers in Pixar. And Pixar's now one of the biggest... I mean, they're, the first person to actually, define, motion tracking and everything with animated characters in Toy Story, the first
Wasn't
Toy
he,
Story.
CEO of Pixar for a while?
For a while. He was... When they started up, this was... Because, it feels like we've had animated movies forever, but not in the present form. Back in the early 90s was really the first time that, a real, animated... thing came out, and Toy Story was the first one, and Pixar, of course, behind that. And now you look at, we were talking about something the other day, films like Up and, the current computer animated films have gotten so good, they're pretty remarkable if you think about it, considering what before computers, what happened. And, Pixar's a big company. They're one of the biggest movie producers, grossing every year. And he was, one of the big guys there for a couple of years. But, he is known mostly for his job at Apple. And he started Apple with Steve Wozniak in his parents' garage. That's always funny. And I would encourage you guys to go watch, I think Jeb had it up earlier, the 2005 commencement speech that he gave at Stanford. And the cool thing is, this was right after, it was about 2 or 3 years after he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And the doctors gave him between weeks to 3 months to live. It was literally one of those things where they thought that he had, a lot of times if you have a very aggressive form of pancreatic cancer, that's on one of your major bodily organs, and unless you get a transplant. And he also had a liver transplant. So, but the thing was, this was only about 2 years after he figured out that he had a very rare form of pancreatic cancer, which was could be cured by removing a small part of your pancreas or whatever and removing the tumor and everything. And he was eventually declared cancer-free, and of course it came back and everything, and that's eventually what we believe killed him. But you know, I mean, if you just go back in his life and you look at the things that he was involved in, I mean, we just talked about Pixar. That's one of the most successful companies I can think of right now, you know, in the movie industry. And then you've got Apple, which, you know, has soared to amazing heights since it came back. And now you think about it, they've released the iPhone. I mean, there's so many namesake products that he has under his name between the iPhone and the iMac and all the devices, the current Apple devices that we use today. Every single one of them had his hand was involved in them. I mean, for about 10 or 12 years now, he's been involved directly in every single Apple product launch. And I read somewhere, and you would think this may be true. I mean, obviously we don't know how far in advance they plan, but I read somewhere, and I think it was on like All Things D or something. They said where it's been reported that Apple could have up to 4 years of product launches scheduled that Steve Jobs was still working on up to weeks, you know, just a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So he did not show up. I mean, obviously he was in really bad shape, but that was one of the interesting things about Steve Jobs. He led a very private life, except for when he did keynotes and stuff. I mean, if you think about some of the people like Mark Zuckerberg, things like that. I mean, nowadays he wasn't a new breed CEO. You know, like Mark Zuckerberg, like Larry and Sergey, people like that, like Vic Gandotra, some of the people at Google. I mean, they're very social. They go out there on Twitter. I mean, they'll do like live Google Plus hangouts or whatever. But Steve was really one of those guys where he was reserved. And I would say that a lot of people honor him for that just because, I mean, that kind of added to the aura of him. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, he was such a great thinker, but at the same time, it was like he only fed like morsels to the people who followed him. You know what I mean? Like he never came out and said, hey, he never wrote like an all, you know, telling book or whatever. You know, he's one of those people that you never have seen like into his mind or whatever. Like Bill Gates, you know, he's out in the media a lot with his philanthropy work and everything. But it's kind of been astounding how many people have either made videos. I mean, they showed one of TLD Today on YouTube, youtube.com/TLD Today. He did one of the best Steve Jobs tributes, and he actually, I don't know where he lives. I think he lives in Chicago or something, but he went to the local Apple store, and people were just like laying flowers and everything, which is very interesting. I mean, I don't know if they did that. I'm pretty sure they probably did it at our Apple store as well, but you know, he made a pretty powerful video, and I would encourage you guys to check it out. But honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, my history teacher said this. He's 65, and he's lived through a lot. You know, he considers him. You know, he studies history a lot, and he said that just because how history is taught today, we don't talk about, or we never like if you like in a 4-year history course in high school, you never get to current day history. I mean, that's just something that there's so much history to study that you can't, you know, get to things like that. Yeah. And he said, you know, 20, 30 years from now, Steve Jobs, I mean, there's going to be a chapter in the new history books that are going to be written about him the same way that there's one about, you know, the Vanderbilts or the car, you know, whatever, like, you know, the people that were big in the oil industry. So, you know, I mean, I think it's one of those things where we don't really see the aspect of it because we lived it present day. But, you know, when you're looking back on it like 20 years from now, you're going to say, wow, Steve Jobs, you know, really shaped the way that we use computers today. I mean, you know, anything from simply using a mouse to gesture on a computer all the way to a graphical interface, you know, like a really good graphical interface with the, what was that, like the Apple II or whatever, one of the first that had the graphical interface. I mean, there's just so many things, and we could go on and on about, you know, how his inventions and his products have changed the world, but I don't know. And like we said here, one of his, there's a Steve Jobs approved biography that's going to be coming out, and he didn't actually, it's not an autobiography, it's just a biography, and Sony is in the process, and I've read in a couple places where they may have actually acquired the rights to do a movie about Steve Jobs, and I think that'd be pretty interesting. I saw somewhere on Google Plus where one guy said that his recommended title would be like the one last thing. You know how he's in his keynotes he's always been like
he's like one more thing.
Yeah. I mean, that would be kind of interesting. And he's one of those people where he led such a different life that it wouldn't just be like following. It would be an interesting movie.
Well, he would always do the. He'd always have like this thing, be like, yeah, we got this, and we got that, and that's pretty much it. But oh wait, one more thing, I got this, and you're like, oh my god. So.
And I haven't been the biggest Apple proponent in years, and I think that's one reason. Maybe I don't know.
I was getting into Apple when I got out of high school back in 2004, and I'd gotten a PowerBook and all that stuff, and but then I was just like, it's way too expensive, personally for me with my financing abilities to go the Apple route, so that I ended up going the PC route because it's cheaper. But that's just me.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no doubt
it was more money thing than anything.
And you look at if you go to any kind of pro studio, whether it's video production, audio production, design work. I mean, they're all using Apple products, and I think that's a testament to what Steve Jobs has done and what Apple has created over the past.
Well, he's got that back. He had that back end thing put into the company where it's Apple is quality.
Right.
It's whatever you want to call it, the Rolls Royce of the...
Yeah, it's like a luxury, like the top of the line luxury car.
The luxury part of the computer industry. So, what other computer company out there would you think is more luxurious than Apple? So. Yeah. But, it's pretty cool, seeing all the stuff that he did in a short amount of time, so...
And I spent a couple, maybe like 30 minutes doing this, but if you go on YouTube or if you know some like big YouTubers, like I said, DLD probably has the best one, but if you go on there and you could just spend like hours looking at some of the tributes that people have made, and the weird thing was, people describe this, and I thought it was pretty powerful that a lot of people learned about Steve Jobs' death on a device that he created, whether it was a Mac, an iPod, an iPhone, or like an iPad or something like that, and then also they created tributes to him in minutes compared to Jeff, you've been in video work and stuff. Even with if you're not using like Final Cut or something, all the Adobe products that have advanced, like you could throw together a good video in like 30 minutes if you really want, like picture show, slideshow.
Use iMovie.
Yeah, true. That's what that's the ultimate thing people are saying.
I just searched Google for Steve Jobs and threw them all into iMovie and put his music track to it.
Well, yeah, whatever.
But yeah, and he does have, I'm not going to say that there was a cult following, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there is a much stronger following for Apple things than, say, Microsoft or something like that. Because, if Bill Gates died tomorrow, I don't think it would have near as much impact as, Apple, as Steve Jobs died, And it's kind of weird how we, kind of tier our emotions to certain people, but,
And one of the things that has kind of gotten swept under the rug for a bit is the iPhone 4S announcement, which was Monday, I think, or something. But it was earlier this week, and we speculated about it. I guess it was on Tuesday. Anyway, I don't even remember now. So many things have happened, but
it was like he was holding out for that, and he's like, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of people have made a big deal about it because honestly, I think Apple is one of those companies where they've planned in advance. So we could, like I said, 4 years from now, we could still be seeing products that Steve Jobs approved.
Yeah, he's like, never again. Never shall you see a multicolored Apple product.
Yeah.
For the next 10 years, he's probably like, if I can see anybody doing anything, I'm coming back.
Right. But the iPhone 4S, did go up for pre-order. I believe it was on Friday, and you had to get there at like midnight or something. And of course, the site went down for a while. And Mashable actually has a cool couple of screenshots that shows you what the store looked like. And, you could get the black or the white version. You could go 16, 32, or 64 gig, 199, 16 gig. And most people got in who stayed up and pre-ordered. And the weird thing is, they're saying that it delivers on October 14th, which is it's a
like 6 days from now.
Yeah, I mean it was a week from when you could pre-order. And
so that's a pretty quick announcement, pre-order, get it.
That's how they usually are, because I think they wait for the announcement and then they say, okay. They
already have them made pretty much.
Yeah. Apple, if they don't, during the keynote, say, okay, right after this keynote, you can go to the Apple store and buy the product. They'll usually do it. And kudos to Apple.
Will run off of it, and they're like,
and kudos to Apple, because there were so many people trying to order this. They actually they went through like 2 different ways to order them, and then they ended up, you get a reservation number to the website, and then at a certain time you can click through. Like, they guaranteed you a spot, but you didn't put your order through at that time, which I think is kind of cool.
But like this one here, is this one to multiple carriers, or is it just to one?
It's on AT&T, Verizon, I believe Sprint. I think they announced I don't know if Sprint's coming. I think Sprint was coming, yeah.
So, I mean, that's good that they're able to do that, because you'll get more people.
And, yeah, this was the first launch that I guess we should mention this. This was the first launch that actually featured the AT&T and Verizon versions at the same time, because remember, the 4 for Verizon just came about 6 or 8 months ago, while the other 4 has been out for like 10 months. So, whatever. And, one of the biggest features of the iPhone 4S, I mean, it does have it's dual core now. It's got a new graphics processor or whatever. I think the biggest thing is that now they have Siri, which is something that they acquired a couple years ago. And it's kind of voice. You know how Android has it has a really good voice dictation system, because they use Google servers and everything, and they use, Google 4-in-1 to kind of
for preliminary
beef it up and stuff.
Algorithms.
Well, Siri was an app that actually was just a standalone app, and now it's in iOS. And you can send text messages, whatever, but you can also say, like, Siri, book me a table at 7 for Longhorn or something. And obviously, I mean, that's something where if you live in San Francisco, that's pretty cool. But if you live in Birmingham, Alabama, for one thing, you don't book tables very often. And second of all, I mean, it's just kind of, kind of weird, but whatever. But you can still go pre-order now. They will be available in stores at 8 a.m. At your local retail store on October 14th. And then also you can go to, like, AT&T stores, but you're not guaranteed and Jabe and I have figured this out on multiple Android launches. If you go to Best Buy or AT&T or Sprint or somewhere, you're not guaranteed that they'll have more than like 5 phones. So.
Yeah, like I talked to someone at Best Buy one time. They're like, yeah, when we normally get in phones that are, a big release, we normally only get like 10 in. Yeah. Or even not even that. Like, I mean, I like on these Black Friday things where like they have like, oh, come in and get these LCD screens. They're real cheap. And like, we only got 2 and they've already been bought before the store even opened.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna get any.
So whatever. Our next story is kind of interesting here. We've been talking a little bit about. Actually, we learned about 2 or 3 months ago over the summer that the next version of Android would be called Ice Cream Sandwich.
Ice Cream Sandwich.
And then I think is the next one called Jelly Donut, or did I just dream that? I think it is. So they are going in alphabetical order with the desserts, which I think is kind of funny. But the latest ice cream sandwich version on the phone, supposedly, well, first let's go ahead and talk about, well, actually, we'll go ahead and break these down.
So what happens when they get to zebra cakes?
I don't know. I guess
no.
They'll probably...
And then it's going to stop, and that will be the end of it all.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure. They'll probably just be like, okay, now we're going to call it, like...
Now we're going with hot dogs. Yeah. You got your Coney dogs, and you...
That would be kind of funny. But here's some... TechCrunch had a really cool... some stuff, and we also have an Engadget post that's on here. But you can go on there and look, and here's TechCrunch's awesome gallery coming into play now. But you can look on there. So that lock screen reminds me a lot of Honeycomb, and I think
what you just drag it out of the circle.
Yeah, and what we're seeing here is an interesting fusion in between Honeycomb and the present Gingerbread, and this is the version that's going to unite both tablets and phones on the same version. So now if you have a Honeycomb tablet now, when it's upgraded, you're now going to have an ice cream sandwich tablet and an ice cream sandwich phone.
So this is what your dock pretty much looks like.
Yeah, relatively the same. You've got the the 5 icons with the app drawer down there at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that.
And then they got the software buttons down here, which more than likely, like we were saying before, the new generation of phones that are going to be using this with a faster processor and stuff are probably going to be very minimalistic on the actual hardware buttons.
Right.
Which is I like the fact that we're kind of getting into touch stuff, more and more and more. But man, we're like getting away from some buttons.
The thing is, I have not. I can see where you're coming from because you've had a hardware button for like 5 years. Ever since you've been on Android, you've had hardware buttons. If I'm not mistaken.
But I mean, like, I know it's all about kind of like joining all the different things together. But like, I mean, the iPhone's okay with its like center button and junk. But I don't really want that. Like I don't want just one button that does everything.
I think my view is skewed a little bit because the thing I know you're not I don't know. I wish there was some kind of cross-platform. Like, I wish everybody used the same structure, first of all.
Yeah.
Because
like there was like a scheme.
Motorola is one of the biggest ones. So, like, they just decided to put like the menu button on like
we'll just put the call and in buttons right here on the desktop. I'm like, why?
Yeah, but whatever. I mean, I don't have an issue that much with. I mean, it's just something I'll have to get accustomed to. But I know what you're saying is that's something that Android has always had is the hardware buttons, which other phone.
And it's like they're trying to get away from that, and I'm like, why?
I can see why because I don't really feel like there's a place for hardware buttons on a tablet. I think it feels awkward to have hardware buttons on a tablet because a tablet, a 16:9 tablet is hard enough. Like it's awkward enough to use.
Well, you also got to understand that this is still Android. This is not a full-fledged computer.
I know.
So, like a Windows 7 tablet, okay, like the one I was showing you.
Yeah.
That one is understandable because you're not going to have like, I got to go to my home screen. You don't have that. You just have close the window or minimize it. You have buttons that you're actually able to do stuff with. There are none of those buttons in Android to minimize, maximize, close, whatever.
Right.
So you have to have some form of interaction. So they're just going with a software-based thing. So I don't know. It just seems like it takes up way too much space on the screen. You're losing screen's real estate that you could have for other things.
And I guess that's something that, at least on the iOS side, that has been perfected. It's just built in the UI.
You just press the middle button and it takes you back to the menu.
Well, yeah, the back button's at the top and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the iOS, if it's not on your desktop, then you don't have the app.
True, yeah.
That's kind of how my UI thing is too. But,
right.
At the same time, I'm able to do a little bit more things than, what I got going on.
Overall, I like this is kind of reminds me of the first version this looks like, this is polished. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't have, you can look back at some other Android operating system releases, and you can look at them and say, yeah, that's Android or whatever. But this is something that I like that they're doing. I know that you don't really like the honeycomb stuff.
Well, and I've gotten so used to the MyUI interface that, I probably wouldn't even use this anyways when it came out. But it's good that they're coming out with it because now you have one operating system for all the devices that do run Android. And
this is something that even if I don't like something, I always give a company credit for. This is not a you cannot sit here and tell me that this is a ripoff of iOS because this is totally different.
They're coming up with their own thing,
and
that's
you have to credit. That's something I've always given Windows Phone 7 from day one because they use the tile, and even though I hate that interface, they did not rip off iPhone or Android or anything. They went off and they developed their own thing, and it looks completely different, and some people love it, some people hate it, but they spent the time to make it their own, and I give a company credit for that, even though I probably would never use it. But.
And they can't, the MyUI thing, it's pretty much just, blatantly kind of copying iOS a little, just with the switches and stuff like that. So they didn't want to do none of that, so they have to come up with their own little thing. So their thing is streamline.
Right.
Their thing is straight lines and points, not rounded edges. So, and that's just what the operating system is. The one thing I did kind of notice is that they changed, which I like. They changed the icons for the actual software menu thing.
Right. Yeah.
It used to be like I mean, it was horrible. Like on Honeycomb, it's like a house with a house, okay?
Yeah.
And then you had a house with a line over it. And that was supposed to be for like the menu button to come up. And then you had a house turn on its side. Then you had a house turn on its side with a line over. I'm like, I don't understand what these mean. Like, you have to click it and then know what it means, then associate that with that. But it's very easy to understand that the middle one's a house. That means to go home. That shows your desktop. The twirly arrow is to move the arrow back, and or to go back. The little cascade windows is to show stuff that's open right now, which is something they haven't had before.
Right.
So that's something different that they're going to be doing is kind of like an alt tab thing on your computer. You have that little, here's what's up right now, and you can very quickly go between them. You've always had the recently opened apps, but you've never really been able to switch between them, because what I would always do is if I went to a recently opened app, then it would just go to the default part of that app. It wouldn't like come back into where I was at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and it was just kind of like,
yeah.
It didn't seem like you were really switching between apps. You were just opening it up again.
Yeah, and honestly, that was one of the big things that I had an issue with Honeycomb. The same with you is the icons, like you were talking about. I mean, you couldn't even tell
I'm like, what does
what
this
they
even
did.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, where's the... every single phone that's ever come out has an arrow either pointing back to the left or rounding over or something. Like, what is this house on its side? Did the tornado come by? I mean, what's going on? So, I mean, I give them that. But still, like, you're going to be taking away a search button. Like, I like the search button. I like to be able to have a button devoted to searching something. Because that's what you're going to be doing on your phone. It's connected to the internet. What are you going to do? You're going to go look up something on the internet. You're going to go type in something. You're going to do something with that. And I just like that ability to, do that. So
I know what you mean. So, we'll have to wait and see. You did make a point in saying, and I believe that it might be true. We're still several months off, even like a preview of this coming out. Or
and this preview. You got to understand that what's leaked out is not what it's going to probably look like. It's just going to be, I don't know. It's going to be different than what it is right now. Just because I have this, whatever you want to call it, conspiracy theory that Google allows these leaks to come out just so that they can get feedback. But they call them leaks so that they get, all this press coverage and stuff.
Right.
But they're letting these come out. It's not like some guy's like, oh, look, whoops, I got all these up on Twitter. Oh, no, how do I do that?
I mean, we saw that with the Kindle Fire. Like, they called it a leak, but, I mean, he was... One journalist was actually invited in to be like, hey,
it's not a leak.
Yeah.
It's not a leak. It's a release. It's a press release. It's not a leak. So, everybody's all about, oh, man, this came out. Oh, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because I'm looking at this. Oh, man. But... I don't know. So they're really doing this just to get some kind of like little tactical feedback going on from the consumer industry and see what's going on with that. So
I know what you're saying. So I don't know. We'll keep our eyes open. But the main thing that this surrounds is Samsung and Google were expected to make an announcement maybe about the Galaxy Nexus, I believe. That's an awkward name. I don't like.
Yeah, it's like they took two phones and merged them together. Yeah. And it looks like it's kind of bent. Is that what I'm seeing there? Is that maybe the side of it?
That's kind of a teaser. It looks like a phone, the side of a phone, but
which is probably 100% concept.
Yeah.
That's probably not anything what they were doing.
And since I got my Galaxy S, or not Galaxy S, Nexus S a couple, I guess it was like 2 or 3 months ago, I've kind of I'm really I've kind of converted, like you said, to the Samsung side of things. I mean, I love that display. And I'm kind of looking for a new phone because honestly, that phone was kind of dated just with the You know what I mean? Like the processor and stuff. But we're expecting like this is going to be, besides the Galaxy S2 that was just launched in the US, this could be like the next big, you know, remember when the Nexus 1 came out and it was like the first like 1 gigahertz like Snapdragon phone, and it was like the top dog for about, you know, 8 to 10 months in the Android ecosystem. I think this could be that next phone, and it may not be for 8 to 10 months, but maybe for 4 to 6 months. This is, and plus it's going to be the next in-house developed like Google Experience phone, and we're expecting ice cream sandwich. So there you go. There's some more pictures.
This is a leaked video of
the actual
the
phone.
Galaxy Nexus.
Yeah, and it looks a lot like the Galaxy or the Nexus S. I keep wanting to say there is a Galaxy.
But
S.
you see here, I don't think those are. Is that actual? See, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, because
the contrast on it.
I don't know.
But here's a little video if you want to play that.
Sure.
Showing it actually in. This is the.
So see, they did change that from Honeycomb. I mean, you don't have the effects anymore, which I always thought just slowed Honeycomb down crazy. You know, you had this nice tablet that.
And then the sideways thing's kind of weird.
Well, see, what it's doing is you can swap in between apps and widgets and stuff, but you can still scroll down.
Go left. Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, that's another thing.
And then you drag and drop it, put it everywhere you want.
And I think the big thing with Ice Cream Sandwich is there's more of a focus on widgets, which I think have always been Android's strong point, but it feels like widgets sometimes are just secondhand, like an app developer's like, okay, we got this cool Android app, let's just make a widget for it that like brings you into the app. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need more, like, I really like some widgets that I have on mine for like my LED light. Is an icon,
right?
And it looks like it would launch the app, but when you press it, it actually turns the light on and off. Yeah. I mean, that's really cool because they're able to, you know, do stuff like that.
But with Honeycomb and also Ice Cream Sandwich, there's going to be more of a stress of, you know, actually widgets that do things, display information such as like Twitter or something. And I've always like strayed away from those because, well, on the phone at least, but I can see it on a tablet. You know, you just have like a home screen dedicated to like news stuff, and you just scroll over there and you see them flowing by. Like, that's kind of a cool feature, I think.
See, now I understand. Now the camera interface looks kind of cool.
Yeah, we have complained a lot about the camera interface on Gingerbread.
But I mean, I understand what they're going to be doing with the software buttons. Your screens, your LCD screens will actually be slightly taller, is what it looks like on that phone. It's slightly taller than what a normal screen would be. Where the buttons would normally be is where the extra bit of screen is.
Yeah.
And there is no from that, there was no physical on the face.
Well,
buttons.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like if they do away with where the hardware buttons should be and they bring the screen down, you're really not. Yeah, you're not losing.
You're going to be used to it, but
the buttons just go away when you turn off the screen.
Yeah, and even if your phone locks up, you still can't touch these buttons because it won't work.
Because they're capacitive.
Yeah,
on
so
most phones.
You know, you don't have that hardware click, so it doesn't matter anyways because it's on me on the screen.
That is something I had forgotten. Like I think like you, I was assuming that for some reason the screen size would be the same.
Yeah, and you'd have this big blank spot down at the
bottom.
bottom.
But that makes sense.
But yeah, they're gonna extend the screen down, which will look cool because you'll be able to have like, you know, border to border screens. But at the same time, you know, it's just all about, you know, whatever.
The thing I like, if they do the software buttons right and they extend the screen, like we said, I think it'll be a good play because.
Well, and I'm also pretty sure that you're gonna have skins. You're gonna be able to change the way they look.
Oh well, it's Android, of course.
You know, so I mean, that in that aspect, it's kind of cool because, you know, if you didn't like the fact that, you know, HTC has a circle with a house or a circle with the word menu, and you wanted it to look like something else, well, they got a skin that you could change it.
Exactly.
Or if you wanted 4 buttons, now you have 4 buttons. Or someone that only wants a home button has a home button. You know, so I don't know. We'll see.
We will.
We will see.
And our final story for today is an interesting one. And GigaOM, if you haven't, I mean, we don't do stories that much from GigaOM because, I mean, there's just so many tech press sites. But they're really good at, like, opinion-based stuff. And they track media in relation to, like, new media and stuff really well. And this is something that I thought was a kind of an interesting story. And Bravo, you know, is like a, how would you explain? I mean, they really have a lot of reality shows.
Bravo would be considered a they're kind of like IFC with the indie film kind of deal.
Yeah.
But they're slowly moving into less indie things. Like before, you'd go on Bravo and you'd be like, it'd be some weird like, just weird movie. You're like, why am I watching this? Yeah. Like some weird like, I don't know. But now they're kind of like AMC, you know, or A&E. I mean, and you got, you know, you're getting stuff on certain channels now that you normally wouldn't have, like History Channel. You know, you have Swamp People on History Channel, or Pawn Stars, or what. You know, it's kind of weird because it's not history, but it is because it's about history. You know?
Yeah.
So it's weird.
It's kind of a different flip on the same stuff.
So you know, Bravo is all about, you know, like, you know, Sundance film festivals and stuff like that, kind of like IFC is, but they started getting more and more into reality stuff, and now that's pretty much what they all are. Just
I mean, they have some pretty big hits like The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which I've never watched, but I think is popular. The Millionaire Matchmaker.
They're pretty much like, I would say 75% of their stuff on their channel now is reality stuff.
Probably.
They're turning it into a reality channel is what it's coming down.
But, you know, this is something that I might watch, and Jeb, I'll give you time after we kind of explain this, what you thought would be a really cool, and I agree, show. But they're going to be, like, following around, you know, all the parties and all the funding rounds and everything that goes into someone creating a startup. And, you know, I mean, we've talked about the bubble in San Francisco and all those, like the Silicon Valley, and honestly, I'm one of the bigger proponents to say it is a bubble, but at the same time, you know, I mean, people are making their money, whatever.
Yeah, and you also have all these social networking things where you're really and truly, like, you know, a tweet away from talking to, you know, Bill Gates or somebody. You know, I mean, and you did not have that access to people like that before. I mean, you know, 5 years ago, do you think you would have been able to talk to a football player directly over the internet?
Never.
I mean, and now you have that.
And I think the biggest thing is through Twitter. Facebook was kind of a false advertisement because we were seeing a lot of PR agencies and stuff like posing as them.
And originally, Facebook was designed for college people to share stuff, you know. But
Twitter being how it is now, when I see that, like, for instance, Brandon Phillips, he's a shortstop. I mean, he's a good shortstop for the Reds, and after pretty much every game, he goes on there on his BlackBerry or something like that.
Yeah, and just respond.
And that's the thing. I mean, every once in a while I'll go on there, and, you know, if I see it's coming from, like, CoTweet or Hootsuite or something that I can see, like, a PR agency using, I'm like, okay, this is kind of rigged. But it never is, like, on his. It's coming from his BlackBerry. And you can tell. And I'm like, wow,
he's actually sitting there on the bench,
you
know, in the locker room somewhere and going,
I mean, that's awesome, and I love that. But
so it's cool because, and they know that, and they I mean, that is the new media. I mean, is this like one-on-one thing. You don't have to go through the news channel anymore. You can actually talk directly to the guy.
And I think that's very dangerous in the eyes of, like, the MLB and stuff, but it's awesome for me
because that can get out very fast.
I mean, something, for instance, let's just say, like,
there's a false sense of security there, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah,
I mean, this will make a very interesting show. I'll probably watch it, at least the first episode, to look at it.
Yeah, just to see what it's all about.
But then again, like, I don't know if, because I'm a big, like, I like tracking, like, startups and stuff, and I like, you know, I mean, it interests me that somebody could go raise $150 million because they're going to make an app. You know what I mean? And I want to see, like, don't you think it'd be cool to watch the pitch at least and be like, you know, I mean, obviously they got something just besides being like, hey, I'm going to make this cool app. You want to give me some money? You know what I mean? Like, they got some swag or something going on with them, and they're just like, somehow they work it so they can get that money and start their own business. And I think it'll be.
And the way I'm reading this here, their little call out thing for it, it's not going to be like known people. It's going to just be Joe Schmo in Silicon Valley doing his thing. You know? Yeah. Like, you know, it's going to be the little guys. I don't think it's going to be, you know, everybody knows this guy.
Like, it's going to be tracking the startup market. So, like, if you and I lived in Silicon Valley or something, and you were like, hey, let's make some really cool startup dealing with, like, MakerBots or something. Yeah, and then we contact them and
say, hey.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing, and it kind of worries me because I'm not sure that, like, the 45-year-old house moms are going to want to watch this instead of, like, the Real Housewives of Orange County. But at the same time, I mean, this interests me a lot, and I mean, you know.
And I thought it would be really cool if anybody from Bravo is watching, if they were able to do, you know, some kind of behind the scenes of major corporations in the tech industry. So, like, say you have a show about, maybe call it, you know, the tech corporation, something, I don't know. You'd have like a trifecta thing going on. You'd have like 3 storylines going on. You know, you've seen that with reality shows. They have like multiple people that never interact with each other, but they're on the same show, kind of going back and forth with each other.
Right.
Kind of like Swamp People. Okay? You had all those different, you know, hunters and stuff, fishermen or whatever, that, you know, they didn't interact with each other.
Right.
But yet they were all on the same show. Okay, so have that same kind of flow, but it's with Apple, Microsoft, and Google. You know? Or somebody like that, right. You know? And you go in there and like, here's you know, it, and those corporations, they really probably wouldn't be for it just because they're all about keeping secrets until it comes out. But if you do it just right, you can do this after they come out with the stuff, you know? Yeah.
I think that would make an awesome show.
I think a lot of people would watch that because a lot of people are, I mean, what better place to go and see what's actually going on with the thing that, right. I have a Apple iPhone. Well, hey, cool, I can get see behind the scenes on how they're actually doing this stuff on a day-to-day or not a week-to-week basis, you know? Yeah. I mean, it'd be pretty cool, so.
I think that would be awesome. So, I don't know, I mean, that's just a thought, but I still think tracking a lot of startups because startups are hot right now. I mean, people, if you think about it, Twitter was once a startup. I mean, now we consider Twitter like a big-name company, but Twitter was once a startup. They once went through, you know, venture funding and everything. And, for instance, Swipe was just acquired. I mean, you know, we remember Swipe. Like, Swipe was created by the same guy who created the T9 architecture for texting on, you know, regular phones. So, I don't know. I mean, that's just something that I think will be fun. And like I said, I'm always skeptical when something like this, like a niche product, becomes a TV show because it kind of reminds me of like Tech TV, like who's gonna watch it? But at the same time, I'll watch it and it's gonna be awesome. So. You can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/thatnickjones. Nickjones.me is my personal blog. You can follow Jago on Twitter, twitter.com/freakinghuge, FREAKINHUGE. JRoberts.me is his personal blog, and JRoberts.me/plus gets you to his Google Plus account. And then make sure to follow pbcasttv on Twitter, twitter.com/pbcasttv, and get all the episodes of every show we do, Gadget Gurus, Tech Weekly, and Fab Lab, which we just did a this much show on. All those will be on pbcasttv.com or pbcast.tv. So until next time, guys, I'm Nick Jones.
I'm Jacob Roberts.
And this has been another episode of Tech Weekly.
Peace, guys.